what you speak, you give life to. Your words are seeds, and every time you speak, you plant something in your future. If you speak faith, you plant expectation. If you speak doubt, you plant limitation. Many people sabotage their own destiny because their words contradict their prayers. They ask for blessings, but speak negativity. They declare that God will make a way, yet in the same breath, they confess defeat. The power of life and death is in the tongue. A careless word can destroy a relationship, ruin an opportunity, or even delay a breakthrough. What comes out of your mouth creates the atmosphere you live in. If you constantly complain, you will attract frustration. If you always speak about failure, you will struggle to see success. But when you align your words with God's promises, you set yourself up for favor, victory, and open doors. Throughout history, destinies have been shaped by words. The Israelites were on the verge of the promised land, but their own words kept them wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Instead of speaking faith, they spoke fear. Instead of seeing victory, they saw obstacles. Their mouths turned an 11-day journey into a lifetime of waiting. Some people blame circumstances, but the real battle is not always external. It is in the words they speak every day. When words are filled with faith, they attract breakthroughs. When words are filled with doubt, they build barriers. This is why it is critical to speak life, to declare what God says, and to use words. There are moments in life when silence is the greatest shield you have. Sometimes God closes your mouth, not to punish you, but to protect you. Many people have spoken themselves out of their blessings, revealing things prematurely, doubting what God has promised, or allowing their emotions to dictate their words. When you do not know what to say, silence can be your greatest wisdom. Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, was visited by an angel who told him that his wife Elizabeth would bear a son in her old age. Instead of responding in faith, he questioned how it could happen. His doubt was not just in his heart, it came out of his mouth. And because his words could interfere with what God had already set in motion, he was made silent until the promise was fulfilled. His silence was not a curse. It was a safeguard, ensuring that nothing he said would delay or cancel what God had already declared. How many times have people lost opportunities because they spoke too soon? Joseph had a dream of greatness, but when he shared it with his brothers, it led to betrayal and years of hardship. His vision was from God, but his timing was not. Some battles are not won with more words, but with quiet trust. Even Jesus, before his crucifixion, remained silent before his accusers. He had the power to call down angels, to argue his innocence, to prove his authority. But he remained quiet because the silence was part of the divine plan. There are times when defending yourself is not necessary because God himself will be your defense. Silence also protects relationships, careers, and reputations. Gossip has destroyed friendships. Complaining has delayed breakthroughs. Speaking out of anger has ruined destinies. There is a time to speak, but there is also a time to be still. When God is moving, when he is working behind the scenes, when he is setting things in order, sometimes the wisest thing you can do is hold your tongue and let him fight for you. Many people think that their greatest battles are external, but in reality, one of the biggest threats to success is an undisciplined tongue. Words have consequences. What you say can either open doors or shut them, build relationships or destroy them, bring peace or stir up chaos. Some people have lost friendships, opportunities, and even their destiny, not because of the enemy, but because they could not control their mouth. Throughout history, careless words have led to unnecessary struggles. The children of Israel stood at the edge of the promised land, yet they allowed fear to control their speech. Instead of speaking faith, they murmured and complained, saying they would rather die in the wilderness. Their own words sealed their fate, and instead of entering the land of promise, they wandered for 40 years. It wasn't giants that kept them out. It was their mouth. Look at Moses, a man chosen by God to lead his people. He was anointed, he performed miracles, and he spoke face to face with God. But in a moment of frustration, he let his emotions control his words. When the people complained about water, God told him to speak to the rock. But instead, he struck it in anger and spoke harshly. Because of this, he lost the privilege of entering the promised land. It was not his calling that disqualified him. It was his response. An undisciplined tongue can ruin relationships. How many marriages have been broken because of words spoken in anger? How many friendships have been destroyed because of gossip? How many promotions have been lost because someone spoke without thinking? People pray for blessings, but the same mouth that prays can also push those blessings away. Words cannot be taken back. Once they are released, they create an impact, whether good or bad. Wisdom teaches that not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every opinion needs to be shared. Learning to control the tongue is not just a sign of maturity, it is a key to success, favor, and divine protection. Those who master their words will walk in greater peace, stronger relationships, and fewer unnecessary battles. Wisdom is not just about knowing what to say, it is also about knowing when to say nothing at all. There is a time to speak, and there is a time to remain silent. The difference between success and failure, between peace and conflict, often lies in discerning the right moment for each. Some people destroy opportunities, damage relationships, or invite unnecessary trouble simply because they lack the discipline to control their words. Joseph had a powerful dream from God, a vision of his future greatness. But when he shared it too soon, his own brothers turned against him. His revelation was true, but his timing was off. There are some things God reveals that are meant to be kept in the heart until the right season. Speaking prematurely can stir up opposition that was never meant to come your way. Not everyone around you is ready to celebrate your dreams. Some will resent them, some will try to sabotage them, and some will simply not understand them. Wisdom knows that not every vision needs to be announced. Jesus himself demonstrated this principle. Before his appointed time, he often told those he healed to say nothing. He understood that speaking too soon could invite unnecessary resistance. Even during his trial, when accused falsely, he remained silent, because he knew that some battles are not won through words, but through endurance. Sometimes silence is the greatest demonstration of strength. Moses, on the other hand, let frustration get the best of him. When the Israelites complained about water, God instructed him to speak to the rock. But instead of obeying, he allowed his emotions to take over, striking the rock and speaking words of anger. That single moment of undisciplined speech cost him the opportunity to enter the promised land. One moment of uncontrolled words can undo years of progress. Wisdom teaches that not every argument is worth engaging in. Not every offense requires a response, and not every secret should be shared. Some people talk themselves out of favor, out of relationships, and even out of their own destiny. But those who learn when to speak and when to be silent will walk in greater peace, discernment, and divine timing. There are moments in life when the greatest act of faith is not to move, not to speak, not to fight, but simply to be still and trust God. Human nature wants to fix things, to defend, to react, to take control. But there are seasons when God requires stillness. He is not absent. He is working behind the scenes, aligning things for your good. But if you move ahead of him, if you try to force the process, you may delay or even disrupt what he has already set in motion. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them, fear could have driven them to panic. Some wanted to surrender, others wanted to run, but God gave a different instruction. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The miracle was already prepared. They just needed to trust and wait. Had they tried to swim across or fight their way out, they would have perished. But in their stillness, God moved in a way they never expected. He parted the sea and made a way where there was none. Some battles are not meant for you to fight. Some situations are not meant for you to fix. There are times when the only thing God requires is your trust. When Jesus was on trial, he had every right to defend himself. He could have argued, called down angels, or exposed his accusers. But he remained silent because the plan of God was unfolding exactly as it was meant to. His silence was not weakness. It was divine strategy. Stillness is not passivity, it is active faith. It is resisting the urge to manipulate the outcome and instead waiting for God's perfect timing. Abraham and Sarah struggled with this. Instead of waiting on God's promise, they took matters into their own hands, and the result was Ishmael, a decision that brought unnecessary conflict and consequences. When you step ahead of God, you create burdens he never intended for you to carry. Trusting God means surrendering control. It means resisting the temptation to speak when silence is wiser, to move when waiting is better, to react when peace is the real victory. The same God who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel, your words have power. They can shape your destiny, open doors, or shut them forever. An undisciplined tongue can cause loss. But wisdom knows when to speak and when to remain silent. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is divine protection. There are moments when the best response is to trust God and be still, allowing him to work behind the scenes. If you can master your words, you can guard your future. Speak life, walk in wisdom, and let your silence be powerful as your